manner of speaking, food inflation is now taller than the tallest building in Nigeria. If it's at 35%, it's taller than the Necom building, 32 floors. That's borrowing Paul Alaji's analogy. And headline inflation, 29.9%, which is 30%, is at the height of that Champagne Pearl Tower here in Lagos as well. So, yeah, it just gives you a sense of where we're at in the country at this point. That meeting happened yesterday. How much of the outcome of that meeting would change or move the needle essentially in the way we want it to move? Let's have that conversation with our guest, Dr. Paul Ikele, who is a registrant CEO of the Institute of Business Development, joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
So that meeting happened. They've ruled out importation of food, ruled out price control board, says no more hoarding, and taking a cue from what happened in Kano State. And the president has said, we will get ourselves out of the situation by ourselves, focus on agriculture, livestock, and the rest. But Nigerians are looking at food prices and are saying, how much more of this can we take? By the way, that figure is for January. We're midway through February already, and we don't know what it is. So seeing the outcome of that meeting, in which way do you think it moves the needle, and how fast do you think it can move that needle?
Yes, even like you said, as of January, we had the rate at 29.9. There is still a forecast that within the first quarter, it might get up to 32%. Ooh. So you see, the problem is that it is a multidimensional issue, and any economy should focus on sustainability of at least productive elements. Because like food should be a key focus of government. If we have a sustainable food provisions, it will solve a lot of problems. But because there is inherent factors that is affecting food production, the issue of security, the issue of the environment, is affecting it. So I think the government should do more. And again, it is actually with the populace. We see the population is increasing every day. And we see the kind of food too matters. Okay, Nigeria is just, will I say, a mono economy, and our food system is agro-allied. It's not even a mechanized food system. So what do we do to sustain it? There's so much to be done to sustain it. You see, just like there's this forecast of giving rates, forecasting that the indices is moving from 29.2 to 32. What are we doing to curtail? How do we get these factors in place? Have you looked at the factors of production? Are we just like if you go to stock market, they'll give you rate and things like that. How are we meeting up of these productive factors? Are the farmers producing? Do we have elements that is assisting for its sustainability? Okay, so those are areas to look at. What are government doing to put it in place? The structure. Nigerian architectural administrative structure is good. We have the local government, we have the state, we have the federal. Now, for you to have a sustainable food supply, you have to start from the local government. Okay, so that what are they doing? What kind of goods? And again, it is important to differentiate, maybe to do analysis from regions, the kind of foods. There's cash crops and other elements of food products. So which area? And then there should be a focus on those areas or those food elements that can easily be turned into raw materials and can generate incomes. And then those that can be turned into consumptions. So these are the areas government should actually focus on, and let's see what can be done to improve on it.
If I get you correctly, yes. Are you saying that some of the measures announced yesterday are not enough, or you're saying they're not clear enough? We need to dig deeper, because if the president says there will be no price control board, because a lot of people have suggested that let's try and bring that back to price control. He says, no, we're not doing that. Some had suggested importation of food. In fact, one of those meetings, the committee that I think the president set up for food security or something like that, that was muted. I think it was the Minister of Information that was saying that well, it's on the table. The president says, no, it's not on the table anymore. It says no more hoarding. It says state government should now pay salaries, more focus on empowering the youth, and agriculture, farming, and of course the livestock. All of those measures, do you think they are enough It's essentially
yeah,
what I
the
imagine
measures
what
are quite good. They are quite interesting. But then, having put those measures in place, what are the inherent factors that can use to ensure that those measures come to realities? For example, if you say no price control, what do you mean by price control? You see, do you have middlemen in pricing? What are the primary sources of pricing? Is it not when you produce, the price is being determined by supply and demand? Okay, when the supply is enough and it can outweigh demand, of course, price will stabilize. But when the demand is beyond supply, of course, it will affect price without even a control. Okay, and then what are the factors? What are the indices that enabled the supply to be enough or to be effective? Is it not when you have enough production, you have processes of that production, then you're able to supply to a specific market? Okay, and if the flow of supply is consistent and constant, then the demand can be sustained. You can control demand. But when even you are producing some like agro-allied products, they go as far as going to buy those products in the farm, pay off the farmers, they now find a means, logistics, to move it down here. So if the price control could be fine when they are multidimensional, when there are many. So that's fine. Importation of foods, what kind of food do we import? Grains or flours or I don't know. You see, we are not producing enough. We have large population. Two, of course, certain kinds of food elements may have to still be imported. But you know our problem is that we are like a mono economy. All importations is out. We are dependent on importations. Okay, Nigeria is dependent on importations. So if it could be controlled that some elements of food should not be imported, fine. But what is the alternative? What is the alternative? That's what the government should look at.
So okay, just to button maybe as you land on your thought. Are we really as a country? Because as I look at this government and I study what they are doing, it appears to some of us like there's a push for a truly free market. But are we really ready for a free market?
You see, when we talk about free market, it's free entry and exit. But you look at the factors that operate in that free market. Nigeria is a mixed economic system. It's a mixed. We have the command system, we have the market system. Free economy is that certain elements are being controlled by certain factors. Okay? For example, you cannot just put in all the funds to produce. You must consider some elements which is hidden. Okay? But in a free market, just like what US is a market economy, you can enter the market, produce and sell. Okay, but what are the factors? What are the ingredients supporting that free entry and free exit? They understand. So our market system, you look at the economic system, Nigeria is a mixed economy per se. So the determinants is based on the supply. What factors? How those things are they being operated and controlled from which area? For example, we have the north, we have the south. What kind of food element? Our focus from the north is basically grains, and they have arable areas. Do you understand? But the south is root crops and things like that. Now you can determine that even the operations of a market operation in the south is different from market operation in the north. Most cash crops come from the north to the south. I don't know whether I'm communicating.
Yes,
so those are the issues. The market element, it has to be determined by the factors that will assist the growth of its operation.
So you're saying we're not ready per se? By inference?
Ready, you see, it's a developmental point.
Okay.
You grow and mature. So let's start from the primary level.
Okay.
What have we done? So are we reviewing our activities from the primary level before we come to secondary level to the top level? So the government should come out with a standard policy and allow those free entry and free exits within the players in the market.
Well, Dr. Akile, whether it's a free market economy or a mixed economy, the objective is for the price of commodities really to come down and become affordable to the average Nigerian, which is the target of government. You have said that some of the measures announced yesterday are reassuring, But are they really reassuring, Dr. Ekile, when you consider that some of the real issues that affect the increasing cost of commodities have not been addressed? They were not addressed in that announcement, that briefing by the Minister of Information, when you talk about cost of transportation of food, commodities from the north down south. When you also consider, the cost of production of grains. You talked about mechanized farming earlier on. Nigeria produces more rice than it can consume, actually 8.4 to 7 million tons of rice that it consumes annually. Still, the cost of rice is skyrocketing. So have the real issues been addressed?
Yes, you see, the real issues is a factor of what is at play. Okay, you just mentioned some of the problems, transportations, and several other logistics of movement of these goods and services. Now, if I can remember what you said about the measures, the determinant of pricing actually depends on the supply and demand. If you want prices to come down, a lot of things should be done to ensure that the supply of those goods and services is sustained, so that the demand, people who need it, can always access it at the point they want it. And if they don't, if one thing that plays in the market is that even if you are the first person that enters the market and you have limited goods and services, because the demand is high, so you quickly want to skyrocket your price to quickly make abnormal profit at that point before that can come in. So if government can put in a measure so that, let's determine at what point is being supplied, at what point we could segment, at what point is being demanded, so that this thing can be spread, and then pricing in effect can be determined and controlled. That is, it can reduce price so that you get those things at the time you want it, and you can afford it. And that thing is affordability. And again, some of the causes of hyperinflation is when the value of money, like we are looking at the dollar and everything, when the value of money is no longer what it is, okay, and you cannot use that money to purchase what you want, so it creates problems. I don't know whether I'm communicating. So those are the areas that the government should actually look at. One, ensure that food production is adequately provided, or the processes that will lead to enough food production. And then, of course, Nigeria is a large country. We have states. Now, let's identify from each state what kind of food elements, so that you can collect or aggregate it, and then you can plan its flow to the areas that from the larger source to the lower source. People that, if they have much, it can move to people that doesn't have. Then it can flow either from the north and the south. So in doing that, so at each point there is what we call satisfaction, saturation, where you can provide enough to a particular segment or a particular region to sort that out.
So you're suggesting increased production. And
yes.
If I get you correctly, you also suggesting some form of price regulation as well, which the president has sadly ruled out.
But
if you consider also that the administration announced an increased investment in agriculture from subsidy savings, and the subnationals are also getting increased allocation from savings from subsidy. So what questions should we be asking the subnationals and the federal government as well about increased investment in agriculture in the bid to forcing down price of commodities?
Okay, increased investment in agriculture is quite good, but now we'll look at mechanized agriculture, because you see, if you're going to increase investment in agric, you look at what aspects of that, what product are you looking at to increase its investment, and is it going to be from the up to finished goods? Okay, and you can see that you now begin to look at the constituent of those processes of the finished goods. For example, you need some do I call it energy, you need like movement, you need like technology, you need like mechanical support to those food productions, which actually will increase the cost of production. So at the end of the day, what will be the final pricing of the production? Because definitely in every aspect is a business. If whatever business you start, you must calculate the total cost of production, and then what will be the benefit that will determine the pricing, so that whoever is buying it can buy it and be able to pay for it and use it.
Quite a number of issues to really unwrap here.
Yeah.
There's still the security angle. The president saying now there's a committee to look into state police. I don't know how fast that will happen, because it will still go to the National Assembly, but it looks like there's a lot of political will now that we thought had been missing before. But he made mention of something which I'd like you to speak to. And I'd like us to explore this point around speculators, hoarders, and rent seekers. Those were the words which the president used yesterday, both for the food situation and for the forex. And I wonder how much is at play here from the speculators, rent seekers, those hoarding. How much of an impact are they really having? Because from the conversation, it's always, oh, we don't have enough power, there's rising transportation cost and all of that. So it doesn't really talk about these points that the president raised. So are they really significant, or how significant are they in the scheme of things? I'm talking about speculators, hoarders, those who are waiting to take advantage, and those the president described as rent seekers.
You see, hoarders and speculators are more or less middlemen. Okay, for example, people will take advantage of limitations and then play a game. Like, for example, fuel. Let's see fuel. People would like to, because they are speculating there will be an increase, they will hoard fuel and without selling, including the filling stations. They tell you they don't have fuel because they are waiting for a pricing so that they can make abnormal profit. Then speculators are people who are not sure. They just throw informations, okay, to confuse people that before you know it, prices will change, or there could be, something will happen. So speculation is not actually a tacit aspect of planning, okay? Others are out of fear. So I feel that the president's determination that there shouldn't be price control is fine, but let's look at the nitty-gritty. You see, before you make a pronouncement about certain policies, okay, certain policies, you should do a study, a plan, okay, and get out the factors so that you can make references to why those policies are being put in place. Okay, for example, the fuel subsidy issue of recent, we've just heard that they are removing the subsidy on electricity, okay, and some of these things will have inherent effect on production, okay. Energy, which is electricity, which is a very important aspect that government should ensure that industry producers should have enough energy to be able to run. Okay. Two, the fuel subsidy has actually affected, because of course, logistics, transportations has increased, and this will affect prices of food and every other thing. So the government should actually look at key issues. One, the masses. Transportation reduction is key. Ensuring that at least the way Nigeria is done, Nigeria is, like I said, a mixed economy, but it is tilted towards capitalism. Okay? If the general masses can afford to move from one location to another, they can afford to spend their meager earnings and buy, at least have access to food. Do you understand? They may not bother so much. But when these things are becoming very difficult for them, movement is difficult, food items are very costly, and again, in those things, there's no genuine food product. There are a lot of polluted products across board. So equally, the government should ensure that there control measures are put in place, like NAFDAC, so to ensure that even those other products that are in the market are of a standard.
So, it appears this has so many moving parts.
I told you multi-dimensional
it
problems.
has so many moving. Is the government taking on too much at once, which is why we're seeing what we're seeing right now? Because there is yesterday also, the Minister of Power was also talking about the fact that if we want to see improvement in the sector, we may consider removing subsidy from power. So, as an economist, when you see what the policy makers are gearing at, are they doing too much at the same time? Should they take it in piecemeal to manage it better?
I'm not an economist.
Okay.
I'm a PhD in marketing. I'm a business development person. You see, my response to that is that government is not biting too much. It's all of planning. You see, I mentioned that the architecture of the government administrative areas are quite okay. Administrative settings are quite okay. We have the states, we have the local, we have the federal. And there are agencies that are mandated to take controls and be able to play a role. But incidentally, some agencies are dormant. They're allowing maybe the government, the executive to do all the talkings and do all the policy issues, without those agencies not playing what they're supposed to, not doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, so that, for example, we're looking at agri sector. Now, agri sector is wide. Okay, and more or less, our agri sector is limited only raw material production. Okay, raw materials have in agri production. Can we mention any products we have produced from the primary source to the final source? It is not. You must bring some mixture. Okay, maybe of course, in maybe a farm settlement. Can you say from a farm settlement you either produce palm oil from the beginning and process it? There are some elements that will come in which will involve movement, and this thing will create cost. And then when you look at overheads, if you don't cover your overheads, you can't continue in production. Okay, and if government says, okay, let them begin to assist in those overheads, it will overburden government too. It will probably shift them from their core responsibility. Because you see, if you are running a business, you are supposed to take total control of that business, determine your cost, your selling price, and then, so at the end of the day, you will look at your measures at the short term and measures at the short and long term. At the short term, even if you don't make much profit, but over time, because there is what we call in production, there's fixed costs that may not change over time. But at the initial point, the cost will be very high. But over time, those fixed costs will no longer be generating extra costs. So you make more money over time. So let's look at what we can do at the short term to sustain the productive activity and then to meet up the supply needs. Okay, so those are the where government can come in, and then when they assist to that level, then the organs can now run on themselves. But unfortunately, there are several issues. You can see, they say in Nigeria, nothing goes up that comes down. Okay, because we don't look at factors that determine those things.
Before my colleague comes in, sorry for that factor is one of the things I wanted you to dwell on, because we see that, is it duties or tariff now? Some people are complaining is increasing, and since we're in an import-dependent country,
yes,
isn't government supposed to taper down a bit on some of those increases so that at least we can manage the situation we have on our hands?
There is these fiscal policies which government puts in place. Tax or exercises actually enables government to generate their internal revenue.
It's hard on the people.
Now, what are the goods that the taxes are high? So you have to identify them. Government can give, of course, they normally can give, what do I call it? Government can give an allowance. Okay. The allowance is given on some capital goods, okay? Tax allowances. So if you identify it, government can, of course, allow that. Because they say that there shouldn't be taxes. It's not, I don't support that.
No, we're just talking about increases, not available.
An increase is a factor of the operations.
All right. Flowing from Kade's earlier question about security, about the consensus that the federal government and state government seems to be coming to about the need for state policing. I wonder how soon or also that will materialize. But in the interim, government is also speaking about increased production following, the resolution of some security concerns in Borno and Jigawa State. Yeah. Now, as we expect harvest from those states, how optimistic are you that this will translate into increased supply and maybe a reduction in prices in commodities?
Yeah, just like he mentioned, you see, those things are speculations. You see, security issues is a problem. And the way this thing comes, you cannot be sure. Even that's why I'm not a security expert. You see, talking about state police or not state police is not a Nigerian problem. You see, to me, that thing is digressing. And we're going to get involved with state policing now. A lot of huge funds. Government will need to put so much funds to. It is good. But at the interim, Nigeria has a lot of problems. What do we do to meet up the high cost of living for the citizens? To meet up with security challenges? Now, I read the former governor of Kano said there should be massive employment of police. Police, with what they have, should do more. Should do more in terms of controls and in terms of information gathering, which is important. So that even when you have state police, they equally will need information gathering to be able to operate. And then, you see, Nigeria, we have all we have. For example, every local government have a local government chairman. Every state have to. So population, even in your own village, the number of people within your village. When I was in the US, in Chicago, if any person passes a street, alarm, they will detect that a new person is passing a particular street. So they'll find out from the security agency who that person is. So those things can be brought into the country. In local government, if there are new people intruders, so people should be detected. And so the security thing is among us, it's not really on government. Everybody should actually play a role.
But if I could pick on, one of the first few responses to that question, you talked about funding, and that is the bridge we always get to whenever we talk about state policing.
Yes.
But it seems to suggest that it is an impossible task to achieve. But really, when you consider that it is a matter of restructuring and the need to devolve powers, isn't it something that government needs to be more deliberate about, particularly when you consider that there is now increased funding saved from the removal of fuel subsidy.
Yes.
And that goes back to my earlier question about questions to ask the subnationals. Is it impossible to achieve when you consider that there is now increased funding for government, to deploy to areas of concern like security and agriculture?
Yes, okay. The funding will come from those subsidies which they've stopped, is it not? Because you see, government funds is already planned through budget. And you must have sources of funding. And that's why at times, even government does a budget, they may not exclusively or completely fund it. The fuel subsidy, you can look at, for example, petrol fuel subsidy removal. Between us, it is still said that government is still providing subsidy. Even when it is announced it's been removed. Now, the seventh, how do you articulate it? How do you distribute it? You see, like you mentioned about state police, the essence of state police is to give control, devolution of power, so that operations can be effective at specific areas. You don't need to take permissions or authority from the center before you act. The current authority can relinquish those, the powers can relinquish those authorities and allow maybe commissioners of police to effectively operate without reference to them because of the stringent or the risk security issues. I don't know whether I'm communicating.
Right.
You see, all what we are talking about, what do we need to do to improve the livelihood of the population? What do we do? For example, you talk about Bono. Bono has been a very key security, there's been a security issues there.
Oh, that's Borno State.
Borno State. So what can we do, both government and citizens to ensure that there's effective control of security issues, to ensure that there's effective supply of goods and services, to ensure that the citizens there are supported, they have access to good livelihood.
Right. And just to buttress some of the points that have been made here, some of the messages, the posts coming in, Solomon Inusa on X has this to say about the conversation, saying the major issue of price increase is the middlemen found in the market. Says they determine how much food is sold in the markets and not the farmers. He believes that they need to be eliminated, and it's important to have your voices heard on this particular one, and that's what Solomon Inusa thinks. But there's a point that the president made. By the way, this conversation concerns, all of us. There are real issues, okay? It concerns everybody, and we're hoping to get a sense of how people are handling the situation on the streets of the country. But the president was saying something quite instructive. He says that Nigerians, by extension, it started from governors, but Nigerians should trust the central bank with the management of a country's monetary policy. And this is what he says, particularly says, every one of us cannot be an expert.
Yeah.
If we have given someone an assignment, let us allow them do it. If they cannot do it, then we find a way to quickly get them out of the system. And this is the president talking about, there's been a lot of talk around the forex management, how the CBN is carrying on. We can talk about how the CBN previously did it, but under this administration, there's been a lot of conversation around that. And I wonder what you think of the president's submission, saying, well, the CBN has been given a job. Everybody should not do, I'm an expert in this. Let the CBN do its job and allow it. Do you agree with that? Give the CBN all of the free hand? I don't know if it implies that Nigerians cannot contribute or suggest, but what are your thoughts, particularly how the CBN has done its job in the past few weeks?
The CBN is an authority that is in charge of monetary policies. And of course, the president is right to say that there should be professional specialization in key areas, even in government. You should try and play a role if you are given a responsibility. CBN has a single responsibility to ensure that monetary policies in the economy or in the country is controlled. That's like money, printing of money, money supply, and then forex. You can say that the president, in his earlier submissions through CBN, that Naira is being floating of Naira. You see that actually have a serious effect in why the forex has jumped so high. Because we are a mono economy. We are dependent on what comes in. Do you understand? We have nothing to give. If the productive aspect of the economy is able to produce and we can export. So we're able to determine our strength to that area. CBN, of course, they take core responsibility in monetary policies that to determine the flow of money in an economic system. Two, forex. Forex is foreign exchange. CBN may not control it because it depends on
the demand
and supply. What are the products people want to bring in? How are they sourcing their funds?
The policies of the CBN can encourage.
It can control.
Exactly.
It can control and give
huge effect on that system.
CBN comes in to intervene. For example, if there's an adverse effect in maybe forest, they can come in and come with a policy to control it. That's where some fiscal policy through the government can say, let's tax certain products coming in.
Just to add to what Kayode said, perhaps maybe let me expatiate it, because the president has said, leave the experts to do their job. So maybe the sentiment of people in always querying the experts is what happened with the Naira redesign, which even states took the federal government to court over these issues. Of course, we understand the experts have to do their job, but because Nigerians are tired of excuses and failures from government. I'm not talking about this government now, successive government. Things have gotten worse and worse and worse. So people just want to get things done, which is the basis of that particular question. So shouldn't there be some level of engagement with the fiscal and monetary authorities rather than just leave them to do their job, so that we give them the report to say, okay, this is what you're doing, but this is the impact of what you're doing, which is why I was talking about tariff. When I asked that question, I knew that certain goods would be targeted, but some goods are being, the tariff is high. We're dependent on those importation.
Yes, if I may come in. You see, I mentioned to you that, one, it is always good to have a plan. And if you don't plan, you plan to fail. You see, Naira design, you see, it came, I don't know whether when was it put on the table and the reason. You see, if the essence of the redesign is to improve the value, the worth of Naira, it is acceptable.
No, it was just to mop up liquidity.
Okay, are you mopping up liquidity for what essence? That's core. Now, during the Naira design, there was shortage of funding in the system. People suffered. So I'm only saying, if there is a plan that is being already made, and then you now work on the framework of the plan, okay, starting point, development, operations, and then you have ending point. That's how plans are being done, like a circle.
Okay.
The production circle. You have the development production level, when at the primary level you are producing those products, then the growth level, maturity level, and then that is how all plans should work with, especially in an economic system. You don't just jump an economic to come out with a policy you are changing, because the population is key, and the reason for Nigeria is the large population we have. So anything that can affect those large population without giving them livelihood, it is really not good.
So this is what Nigerians are saying, which is what, from an expert point of view, I would like you to respond to. I know you're not the federal government. There's a lot of talk about be patient, it's going to get better.
Yes.
Nigerians have never seen better the way they want to see it. Now, these increases have happened. The wage has not increased. The labor union, the organized labor, is saying, make it 1 million naira for us to match up. So, are Nigerians impatient, or they are right to begin to ask, tell us how this will end at the whole of this exercise, which we don't have a clear answer from any quarter. They say give it time. It will balance and stabilize.
Let me just mention something. You know, part of ways to curb inflation is maybe improvement on earning capacity. But before you improve the earning capacity, what are your productive capacity? Don't just print money and increase salaries. 1 million naira per capita as a minimum wage, it is out of it. The money will be valueless, and demand and supply it will not flow. So I think the government should be use a system and then ensure that accurate measures are followed before you begin to benchmark on what should be the standard earnings per person, because it has to work on what is the economy, the value of the economy, what are we producing, what we have, so that even if you benchmark salaries, you'll be able to sustain it. It's not just paying salaries and then increasing salary. Somebody, they maybe are paying putting a salary in 1 or 2 million, and of course you go to the market, you will have nothing to buy. I don't know whether I'm communicating.
And it's important to put a human face to these issues and really tell the story as it affects Nigerians. There's a tendency to look at figures and look at policies and not trickle it down to the individuals. And I'm glad you're talking about those issues. Let's go to the streets and just get a sense of how people are handling the situation. This is from Benue State. Our correspondent, Paisango, filed this in.
And today, I don't think we're in business any longer because of the inflation rate in our markets. I remember that I was in Lagos some few weeks ago, something I bought for 11.5. Yesterday when I called back, they were telling me 14,000 naira for a product of I bought for 11,500 some few days ago. The economy is no longer helping us. I don't know the problem, but I know anybody you talk to now will tell you dollar, 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 dollar. And it's not helping us. The Nigerian of today, we shouldn't be talking about dollar. We should have an economy that our business should be run by us, not by foreign currencies, which means our naira is no longer value. It doesn't have any value any longer. You understand? So the things affecting us as a business person.
When you go to the market, are you able to sell as a business person? Are you able to buy things now? How is your living standard this period?
It's no longer fun because one, what I earn now is far less than what I spend now. You understand? What we earn now is far less than what we spend now. You go to the market, today you have here a different price, next tomorrow you have a different price. And our income is not increasing. It's static, so I don't think the government should come in for us. And then I think the policymakers should really come in at this point in time and see how they can we can work together and boost our economy.
With the whole increment and all that have been affecting the business, I'm into communications, and that affected the cost of purchase, affected the price and all, thereby, even due to the hardship, people find it difficult to afford it at the price it was before. And now, you can get some items you're getting for 26,000 naira, now rising up to 35,000 naira. And even at 26,000, people find it difficult to buy, because most of these people are depending on salaries, and food cost of productions and food items all have gone high in the market. So there are people are finding it more difficult. It's even difficult.
The word difficult just keeps coming up. These are real issues, real Nigerians talking about how they're trying to get by. It's a very tricky situation because for businesses, they have to now up their prices so they can meet up, so they can make some sort of profit to meet their needs. And for the people who are expected to buy, their disposable income keeps shrinking, their purchasing power keeps, shrinking. So the building gets higher, but they're not able to climb. But the building keeps, it's really tough when you look at the situation. But I mean, this is a government that has promised renewed hope. I'm not sure how much of that is evidence. Jeffrey Bukola said government has told people, you need to be patient. Things will work out. CBN is doing its thing. The president, the governors, and our attention is being turned to the local government. And I wonder, listening to Nigerians speak, how much of this you think Nigerians can actually take?
Of course, you don't have a choice. It's better to be patient and work along, because you see, if you are not patient, what will you do? Revolution is the worst. And I feel that all has to be done is that both the government and the citizens should be committed into it. And the government should actually look at solving the immediate needs of these problems instead of going into maybe a capitalist investment.
Social subsidy return. Pardon me for butting. I mean, we're going to go round and round, but let me just go straight. Social subsidy return.
Because that's also on the table. Because it's like things are getting out of control.
Already IMF and World Bank have said Nigeria should close their eyes and remove subsidies both on electricity and petroleum products. That doing that will actually allow Nigerians to take controls of what they do. But the problem, there are so many factors that should be put in place before those things can be achieved. One, key infrastructures. You see, there are some needs that government should not ignore. Food, transportation, electricity, because of course all of us now have come to get, before our forefathers didn't know anything about electricity.
All of these things you mentioned, they are bearish at the moment.
Okay.
They're in the red.
Yeah, in the red, yes. So if government can do anything to ensure that those things are provided and supported, they can, for example, the top class, tax the top class. Okay, increase tax on the top class. Use the tax system to generate funds and then support the lower system. Do you understand? At least transportation should be reduced to a BRS minimum. There should be at least basic foods. Basic foods. I mean basic foods that every Nigerian can have access to. If you want to move, you can move from a location to another location without thinking. Do you understand? And then you should have access to electricity. These things can even allow what we call micro product. We'll talk about China, talk about India. They looked at some of those economic factors. These micro services, SMEs, okay, if they can have, because they may not have the capital to maintain a generator to produce pure water and things like that, or small micro services. If those things like brick, what do you call it, vulcanizers,
right.
Those are people, and they are already sustaining themselves. So government should find a way through a micro means to support them, and then so that they will not really have difficulties in their businesses. Okay, those are it. And if those things are provided, you see, the lower economy can be sustained. And even if they're moving subsidies, of course, no problems. But there are certain elements that must not be played with. Okay, like I've mentioned it, food sustainability is key, at least basic foods. To transportation, things that must be done that people can move from one location to another. Ferry, there are micro businesses that must not be allowed to go off the market. For example, bread, those even hairdressers, those are micro, and these are self-sustained businesses that people use to survive. By the time you now introduce high cost of maintenance, they cannot afford even to buy food to run it. They don't have light. Of course, the problem will continue, and of course, people will continue to agitate. The patient will no longer be there.
And we've seen some of those agitations. I was hoping that you'd be categorical in your response to Kayade's post about whether or not subsidy should return. But in your answer, really, we must also talk about the IMF's position. I wonder whether you agree with those who think that the IMF and the World Bank are always speaking from both ends of the mouth when they say, on the one hand, remove subsidies, and on the other hand, they're giving us, an update on how many more people are living below poverty line as a result of the policies that they, strongly advocate that the federal government should implement. But when you consider the conversation about the independence that CBN should wield in managing the economy, Dr. Ekile, the lifting of ban on 43 items, which is to initially, the ban was to increase local production. But as it is now, is that what is happening with the lifting of the ban on 43 items? Are we encouraging local production as a result? Have all of the indicators or factors of production been resolved in the first place? Are we also, as a result, increasing the opportunities for importation?
Well, is it taking that lifting of those products, it is good to support local productivity, local productions. And it's only when we support local productions and we're able to develop, at least solve the immediate problems within the economy, and we can afford to export. Importations, too, you can't just close borders to import, but you must categorize the goods and services you want to import. Those are ways the government can determine if the goods are necessary. But like we just asked about IMF, I'm trying to dodge. You see, why IMF and World Bank made those policies, those statements, is because of the livelihood of some Nigerians. If you go out of the country, we are reading papers. The paper published, a governor was caught with $800 million abroad. Nigerians have spent so much money. IMF felt that there is a lot of wastage for Nigerians, and equally in the government circles, a lot of waste. Okay, so that is, they are taking their decision or their pronouncement based on. I will take it, say that it is a false view, right, because the real thing is that the core people at the lower level are not having this effect.
You think IMF doesn't know that?
What is the percentage? They may not know that. People at the low level, that's what we call top, low level.
Yeah. And I think that's a very important part of the conversation.
Yes,
really.
low level are not having that impact.
Well,
going into some suburbs, they are not having that.
Dr. Polikile, I'm glad we've actually done a deep dive into the issues raised there, and I'm glad Nigerians are also involved as well. I mean, we're seeing your messages. We'll take some of them. But I'd like to thank you so much, Dr. Polikile, CEO of the Institute of Business Development. It's been an expansive conversation, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
We'll go to break now. When we return, we talk about that conversation. Remember that bill that was struck out of sorts in the House of Representatives? It was meant to increase the qualification for people seeking elective offices, but it looks like majority of the members are not up for that. We'll have a conversation on that in a moment. Stay with us.